Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our work session for February 10th. I'm going to get started as we do have several items on the agenda. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time. So we'll begin with the work session. Thanks again to everyone uh, for joining us this evening. And so we'll proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Brost,
Here.
Councilmember Eden,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Preston, Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer, Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons, Councilmember Albers.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any additional comments or announcements, so we'll proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the executive closed session. So I'd like to kindly ask if we can get a motion to move into executive closed session under RSMO 610.021 subsection 1, RSMO 610.021 subsection 2, RSMO 610.021 subsection 12, and RSMO 610.021 subsection 14. Is there a motion for that made by Councilmember Mabry? I see second by Councilmember Farmer. With that, we'll need a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Eden,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons, Councilmember Albers.
Okay, thank you. With that, then we'll proceed into the community room for closed session at this time. And we will return back to the chambers when we have closed out of the session. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We had several items that needed to be discussed. So at this point, we're gonna come back to work. Recess. Okay, so what we're going to do, because it is 6:30 and we have our main meeting, we're going to recess the work session and come back to it. We will get through the main meeting agenda. We have just several items here, but we will then come back to the work session items that we have planned for tonight. So if there's a motion for recess, can I ask for that? Councilmember Farmer? Is there a second? Councilmember Dodwell? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, the motion to recess passes. We will come back to that work session. So at this point right now, we do have our main meeting, which is today, February 10th. And so do we have, are the scouts here? They're outside? Okay, so we're probably going to need to get them in because, yeah, thank you, Travis. Okay, so now that we're in the main meeting, if we can begin, we'll do a roll call. Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Edens. Here. Councilmember Onberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here, ma'am.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Preston, Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember Nian,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons,
Here.
Albers.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the next part of the agenda, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance from Troop 677. So all right, special thank you to Troop 677 for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Hey, next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, which will be part of tonight's consent agenda. So we'll proceed to the next part of the agenda, which is public participation. Just a few comments regarding that. Anyone who wishes to speak must complete a speaker card and provide it to the city clerk, who is seated to the left of the podium. When your name is called, please approach the podium and state your name and ward. To ensure all those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when you reach that time. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks. Identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so. The official may choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting. Please be respectful to others in making your remarks. Interrupting others using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone here in advance for following these guidelines. So we will now have our first speaker.
Tim Comer.
My name is Tim Comer. I live at 2460 Etherton Road, Ward 8. I'm here to oppose the TV development, and I'm sure that you all know who I am. I've been to every meeting. I just want to let you know that I'm in really hot water tonight because I'm missing my 30th anniversary. And the last meeting I came to, I had to leave my wife at the hospital that just had surgery. So you're tapping into a lot of family time, and it's super repetitive. I think I've gone outside the box and showed you one of the biggest reasons that this development shouldn't go through, even though there are lots of them. So the number one issue for me is the erosion to my property. Currently, their surrounding properties are mainly grass. And the erosion is just carving a path through my yard. And I lost a tree that was probably close to 70 years old from erosion. And when you build projects this dense, the erosion will get worse. And I don't care what they tell you. I have provided every one of the council members here with pictures, because I can preach all I want until you see a picture and you can see the devastation. Then you kind of get an idea and you understand. If you would all come to my backyard and look at from my porch, you would see the water carving through today. It just saturated, and I've done everything I can and spent all the money that I want to spend, and that the money that I can spend to stop this erosion. And it's never ending. And when you decide these things, if you know that it will harm one person, it should automatically be a no. And this will harm my property. It will take down my property values dramatically. I keep a well-kept property. It's a 1-acre plot. And this will just ruin it. It'll ruin it for a lot of reasons. And when you put these lights in, you take away my stars. And even though Mr. Vunich has worked with me with the Main Street lighting, I mean, I've had to redo my house because there's so much light penetration that come through the windows at night. We have blackout curtains. And another big issue that I know you're not fond of hearing is this is rental property. Okay? So every single person that Mr. Bosworth has put into the home next to me, that used to be a 90-year-old lady's home that I grew up with my entire life, all of them except for one have been terrible renters. His latest renter is a young man that's divorced, and I don't know his name. I don't care to know his name. But the other night, him and his buddies decided to have a burnout contest in their driveway. So I can't think of anyone that I know, and I'm 57 years old, that does burnouts in their driveway. And I would have taken pictures, but I don't have time to develop them all and give them to you. But this is what's going to happen when you approve a rental property. These people have no stake in the city. I know Mrs. Dodwell thinks that if you bring all these people in, they're going to bring so much sales tax revenue to Wildwood. Well, I have a family of 5, and from my calculations, you're not bringing much sales tax revenue. And trust me, I have a lot of eaters at home, and we shop the grocery stores, the few businesses that are here that we like. That's not going to bring you any money. I mean, if you're really looking for sales tax, then you might as well put in a dispensary and bring in McDonald's and all the other stuff that brings in lots of sales tax. And poor Etherton Road can't take any more cars. This is a road that has no sidewalks. It's barely passable by 2 cars. The last recent snowstorm, until I called and talked to certain city people, if a big truck was coming down the road, and I had the experience, we couldn't make it because there's not enough room. And it has to be plowed from corner to corner to actually make it possible to pass
30
through.
seconds.
And you know, with this big discussion of the road last time, there should be no exception to the road because the city council gave no exception to Main Street when they built the road. The city said, this is the way we want the road. You either do it the way we want it or it's not getting done. Because I came to those meetings and the last one they said, oh no, we'll take shortcuts. We can make it this and then we can change it in the future. That's just silly. That's nonsense. So when you consider this thing, every time you consider it, you know that you are destroying my property. You are taking away everything that I
Okay.
moved there for.
We're
And
at
I've
5
lived here
minutes
for
now.
25 years. And this 5-minute thing is just nonsense. I can't cover anything. I have 10 other things I can talk to you about. But this is wrong for the city of Wildwood. 100%. And do not cave into 55.
Can you wrap up your comments?
Yeah. Do not cave into 55 when we set precedent at 53. And it should be more of less than 40 because we are on 6.7 acres. And it's been discussed at Coffee with the Mayor that it's 7 acres by,
Okay, we're running out of time here. To be
well, you
fair.
know, Joe, it takes, you don't get enough time. He gets all the time he wants.
All right, giving you a chance to wrap it up. All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Next speaker.
Lynn Link.
Lynn Link, 4028 Indian Ridge, and I'm in Ward 6. We hear more and more complaints about the citizens that they feel that their municipalities put the will of developers over the will of the citizens, especially when it comes to denser and denser development. We all know that our elected officials are voted in office to listen to and be the voice of the people, and many of you have done this, and I thank you for that. I've been at most of the council and planning meetings regarding the Latitude N38 development, and I've never heard one resident say that they thought that Mr. Bosworth's proposal was good for Wildwood. The continuing saga of this proposed development goes back as early as 2018 when Mr. Bosworth wanted to propose 12 individual lots with common required public space areas on a 2.85 acre tract of land. More than 2 years later, in February 2020, West Magazine published an article that said Wildwood City Council rejects bid for downtown residential development, reporting on the first denial of this development. They quoted Mr. Bosworth's reaction to this denial as, quote, unrealistic, political, and crap. Ward 3 council member Kevin Dillard was quoted as saying, I haven't talked to a single resident who told me anything other than they don't want more high density development. Bosworth was also quoted as saying, quote, certain board members feel their personal views are more important than the citizens, and council member McCutcheon is, quote, misguided and an outspoken liar. Councilmember McCutcheon defended her vote, saying repeatedly, they, quote, they say they want less density and that the residents expect council members to represent their voices, end quote. Mr. Bosworth continued to insult the city and was quoted as saying, no developer wants to come to this town. I've lived here in the community since 1985. I think this is absolutely horrendous. Mayor Bowling was quoted as saying, quote, I think this it's important we listen to our residents and do the developments they want. Even though he, along with Councilmember Edens, then Councilmember Garitano was quoted as saying, when looking at the data, residents can be assured that the days of mass rezoning have ended. In the summer of 2023, TB and Benton Home Builders proposed even more high-density rental units and detached houses with even higher density on 6.7 acres in the same area. Benton Home Builders has built similar rental units in St. Charles County with many complaints about poor quality and poor management by those who have lived in them. You should listen to the people and vote accordingly. Secondly, J-turns. With regard to the 3 consecutive J-turns that are being proposed on Highway 100, I urge you to please look at the information that I have sent to the city clerk regarding how dangerous actually they are. While J-turns are reported to be a reduction in crash frequency, the frequency of severe crashes, the actual data shows that, and I've sent a link to these studies, 71% of respondents who've actually used them said issues are used while using the J-turns. 62% said the J-turns were not easy to navigate. 58% that they said they felt less safe in using a J-turn than making a right-hand turn or left-hand turn. 24% said they didn't feel safe while merging from the median U-turn to the passing lane. 18% that said that they felt that the acceleration and deceleration lanes were not long enough. And that's going to be an issue because we're going to be the only place in the city or the county that has J-turns, let alone 3 consecutive J-turns. And 17% said that their vehicle was too large for the U-turn lane. Another study with 36 participants using simulators of
30
J-turns
seconds.
where each participant performed 3 J-turns. A total of 266 errors were reported. Novice drivers made more major navigational errors during the first J-turn exposure. Acceptance of J-turns actually declined following multiple exposures, and major severity errors were associated with worsening J-turn attitudes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Gary Weigart.
Okay, my name is Gary Wiggert, and I am the Chesterfield Wildwood Republican Committeeman. I am also the treasurer for Stop City County Merger. 6 years ago, we defeated the merger, but we kept alive our PAC because we knew at some point it would be coming back. Ian Mackey, a Democrat representing Ladue and Town and Country, has sponsored a House bill for the merger. I want to thank Mayor Joe Garitano for attending the meeting we had and coming out against that. What I am asking is that the full board actually come out against the city-county merger. I lived in the city my whole life. I moved out to Wildwood just to get away from all the nonsense in the city. I don't think that is very good to bring them out here into the county and merge with us. So I know a number of years ago, I believe Mayor Bolin had joined our team and had come out against the merger. So I'm asking that you all do the same. That way, when I go down to Jefferson City, I can go ahead and speak to the speaker and hopefully not even give this bill a hearing. And it would be nice if I would have this organization where I can say they're behind me to stop it. Because once a bill's heard, you know, once you get that financial note on that bill, then it could be attached to anything as an amendment. So I want to go ahead and just stop this. Hopefully it won't get a hearing, and I'd appreciate it very much if you all would consider that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Carl Essen.
Good evening. My name's Carl Essen. I've been involved with Joe and Robin on the Essen log cabin, and currently I got about 680 descendants from the cabin itself. But what I'm here for is I'm part of helping, after we had a nice meeting here, open house, the Historic Preservation Committee in this room. I met with Bill Ballard, and I'm helping him getting historic credentials on his Tyler house that he used to own that somebody has a waterfall in his backyard with. But my family is involved in getting historic credentials on the Ball Essen farmstead, which is down the hill towards Babbler State Park, and the log cabin is around the corner. And that house at the Ball Essen was where my grandfather was born in. Now, my uncle Don Essen, who's my dad's brother, is, he was born in a stucco house next to Schrader's Funeral Home, and up the hill at the Holloway Essen farmstead in Baldwin on Holloway and Kurzmel Road. There's a stucco house there that almost looks like J.P. Conlon House. And so where I'm at is I've expressed an interest in the J.P. Conlon House, and it's currently in discussions to save this property. And we're trying to support not having the resolution 2025-04 happen. But I'm here to say that there is an interest in it. The excitement, I was in the parade when they widened Manchester Road to 4 lanes back in '63 from the West County Drive-In movie theater to the Cherry Hills Country Club. But in as such, I was talking with your staff about how we used to tie down White's Field with our airplane, and we go tie down at Spirit before they had a control tower and everything. But sometimes we drive out from Ohio, and what I realize is the 4 lane of that new Manchester Road, and then we got the existing Manchester Road, is completely in line of remembering driving out in 2 lanes on Highway 40 and a pulley over and everything like that. And then all of a sudden you see this road in the distance being built, and all the commerce is looking towards the old 40 road. And the excitement is because of what they did in lifting Manchester Road, even the Highway 40 to put T in, and T went in because Farmer Brown in St. Albans got tired of his milk truck falling off the cliff. And so that's why they put the T in to get to St. Albans the same time they did the 109 that chopped up Etherton Road and everything like that. But the trick is that is, I realized in looking at, because I go out there and sit and listen to the birds and try to get my understanding, how come the front of the J.P. Conley house is down in like a ditch? Well, it's because it was preserved, it was bypassed, and it's primed to try to save it and to bring out the history. The history, we had some scouts in here. I got my Eagle Scout from Neil Armstrong. But the trick is we have some scouts here, and I'm involved with scouting and everything like that. And it's beautiful how they respect the flag. And if we bring the kids in line to understand our history, then all of a sudden they say, oh, I'm part of that. And they want to protect the history, which protects our community. And maybe we don't have to worry about the fact that the county and city are going to merge, because the kids will be talking about it, and then they come to the table to help us out on this situation. In other words, the power of the history is make it available for them to grasp it, just like they grasp our flag and grasp our, and they respected us, we respect them. Then all of a sudden those kids, if something goes wrong, they'll bring out the attention, so we don't have problems or worry about the city and the county, because we're a stronger community out here.
30 seconds.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please.
Michael Cooper,
Hello, Michael Cooper. I live at 16701 Clayton Road. I think I'm Ward 4. You couldn't swear to it. Some of you could smile a little bit. It's painful, isn't it? But the reason I came here, we had a good talk the other day at Mayor Joe's coffee with Mr. Lee. I've kind of got a unique perspective on your phase 2 issue for the internet expansion. I run a company called Elite Fiber down the much maligned city of St. Louis. We're the largest fiber internet company in the city, independent. And before that, I did 20 years in public accounting, where we tried to turn small piles of money into large piles of money. And I listened to what Mayor Joe relayed to us. And after talking to Tom, I told him I'd come up and talk to you folks. If Spectrum says that they'll do your 400 houses for $3.5 million, I believe if you said yes to that, they'd make it $5.5 million. There's a very crude term, which I won't repeat here, that we use at the office as it relates to the price that you got, and they don't want it. They don't want your project, and I think pursuing it is a mistake with any amount of funds. As I said, I've dealt with those guys in my 20-some years here in St. Louis for a long time. And they're not, I'm just going to tell you, they're not interested. However, for much less money, I'm not sure why we're still pursuing that. Since you guys started your phase one, there are a lot of options to the folks that are left out in that phase two area. I'm not a big Elon Musk fan, but Starlink gets 260 megs down and about 30 up. And on our consulting business, we use it in probably 60 locations worldwide. I sent Tom a speed test from Madrid the other day after your coffee. It's ready to go, and it wouldn't cost the city anything. I understand everybody wanted to do a nice thing for phase two, and that those people may feel left out. Probably not as much as those of us who live in phase zero who got nothing. I'm stuck with the same internet that I had at that time anyway. But like I said, I told Tom I would come up and talk to you folks and just let you know that I thought I would not chase the first bit of money with bad money and would be against any of that. And he has my contact information. I'm happy to take any questions you may have, but I kind of do this for a living. And I just don't want you to waste your time or anybody's money. Fair enough? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, do we have any more speakers? And if there's anyone that is attending online that wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature and we'll add you to be able to speak. Okay, doesn't look like we have anyone, so we'll close public participation here. So we're going to move into mayor's announcements and appointments. So the one announcement that I do want to take a moment to recognize is that our city clerk, Megan Eldridge, is moving on to a new role in another city, and she will be here, I believe, for another week. What's that? Oh, this Friday. That's right. Yeah. Well, the whole week here we've got you. Yep. So I do want to take this moment and on behalf of the council, the staff, and all the people of Wildwood to thank you for your service to our city. You've done an incredible job as a city clerk. We're going to miss you greatly. And, just know that you've left a great impression here in Wildwood from your service here at our city. So I want to thank you again. And, please always come back and visit us. You're not too far. Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. So we'll move on then. We do have appointments as part of the consent agenda. No public hearings are scheduled for tonight. So we'll move into legislation. We have one item for unfinished business. It is Bill 2955, but I understand there is a request to indefinitely postpone that. So we will then, at this point, if we could just get a motion to do that, we'll do that. Made by Councilmember Farmer and a second by Councilmember Mabry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Yeah, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, that passes. Moving on to new business, we have first readings. I'd like to see if perhaps we can read several of the bills en masse just for the sake of efficiency. So if there's no objection, I would propose bills 2960, 2961, 2962, and 2963. And I do understand that for the first reading, there is a request for a second reading of Bill 2960. So any objections to doing the readings en masse? Okay, so can we get a motion for the first reading of these bills? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, bills on, can you please read, the bills?
Bill number 2960, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri.
Okay, so, yeah, there we go. Colleen will read it. Thank you.
2960, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, reapproving a boundary adjustment plat between 3 lots of record, creating 2 parcels of ground largely located on the east side, Chateau Lane, west of Fox Creek Road, being lots 202, 203, and 204 of the Fox Creek Valley subdivision, plat number 6, recorded in book 120, pages 4 and 5, along with the tract of land in the west 1/2 of section 32, township 44 north, range 3 east, and to be hereafter known as Fox Creek Plat 6 adjustment plat. Bill 2961, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Natalie McAvoy for the management and oversight of the city-sponsored farmers market. Ordinance 2962, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood with M&H Concrete Contractors Incorporated for the fiscal year 2025 concrete street and sidewalk replacement project, including other incidental items as shown on the project bid documents. And Bill 2963, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood with Go Green Lawn and Landscape LLC for the 2025 roadside finish mowing program for the city of Wildwood.
So, Director Vunich, do you have anything you wish to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, Bill 2960 is a reapproval of a boundary adjustment plat that was completed by the City Council in July of 2024. There was another boundary adjustment plat submitted for one of the same properties that's the subject of this particular bill. And so that caused some confusion as far as which one got recorded first, so we wouldn't create an illegal lot. We've solved that issue, more so the surveyor than I, and this bill is ready for consideration. Given it's a reapproval, the department is respectfully requesting 2 readings tonight. Bill 2961 relates to our farmers market in the upcoming 2025 season. Ms. McAvoy, who's been the farmers market manager for several years and done very successfully, has expressed an interest. The Planning and Parks Committee endorsed it, and so tonight the bill is before you. If there are any questions regarding those 2 bills, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I just have a quick one, Joe. So, Ms. McAvoy does a great job with our farmers markets. If memory serves, I think she also helped a little bit with our holiday thing last year. Are we going to do that again? Is that in this or separate from this, or how's that work?
Yes, she does the farmers market through the traditional season, which is generally the end of May to early October. Then she has an artesian holiday fair that she does around the beginning of November. And then this year, for the first time, she helped us with the tree lighting ceremony. And those are all anticipated this year as part of the agreement.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Vunich. We'll come back to that second. Oh, we do have a couple of hands up. So Councilmember Dodwell and then Councilmember Ottenberg.
Joe is not as part of this, but would it be possible to get a summary at a later meeting or at the next Planning and Parks meeting of what the total cost to the city is for running the farmer's market. Just want to make sure we know where we're at. We haven't
Certainly.
seen that for several years.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes, Director Vunich, which bill is it for which you were requesting a second reading tonight?
2960.
2960, okay. I'm just wondering, would it be possible for us to also entertain a second reading of Bill 2961?
If there's no objection from the department.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Eldridge, our city clerk, identified that some of the background information didn't get posted with the actual bill itself. So if there's no objection, I would prefer to wait till March.
It's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the Councilmember Mabry. Okay. Well, I don't see any other hands up. So at this point, I'll ask Director Brown if he has anything he wishes to add for these bills that just got read.
Thank you, Mayor Garitano, council members. Bill 2962 is for our annual concrete street and sidewalk replacement project, and M&H Contractors. Concrete Contractors was the low bid this year, and they had successfully completed the work in 2022. So the recommendation is an agreement with M&H this year, and we plan to stay within the budgeted amount overall of 1.3 million with that bill. And Bill 2963 is a new agreement. This year, we split out our finished mowing along the roadsides as a separate project and requested bids for that work. And the bids came in with Go Green Lawn and Landscape being the low proposal, and we expect to save about $65,000 this year mowing along our roadsides, assuming an approved agreement with Go Green to do that work. With that, if there's any questions, I'll do my best to address them.
Councilmember Mabry.
Thank you. I saw the clause that the option for a 10% escalator for a 1-year bump in the contract, and then 0% following second year. I didn't see the general conditions where this is covered, but does it have to be the option taken upon signing the initial contract, or do we have up to the last day of the first year to decide whether to take the option or rebid?
Well, officially, that would come back to the council for your authorization before moving forward with year 2 and potentially year 3. So you would get another crack at it at that point in time.
Not putting you on the spot. Have you
Yep.
noticed, because it says that is per general agreement, the details of that option. So I'm sure it'll be hit on because it is referred to in what I saw as part of the GCs. Will we get a copy of the GCs eventually?
I could certainly, well, I believe the contract is attached
It
to the ordinance.
something like an attachment A, or it just says
There is an exhibit A that's attached with their pricing as part of the agreement. If you'd like, I can follow up with you and make sure you get the correct
Thank you.
information.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then we'll come back to Bill 2960. Thank you, Rick. So is there a motion for the second reading of Bill 2960? Made by Councilmember Ottenberg and seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Ms. Eldridge, do we any discussion or? Yeah, all right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, so now that we have Ms. Eldridge, go ahead and read the, do we have any other questions regarding Bill 2960? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Eldridge.
Bill 2960, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, reapproving a boundary adjustment plat between 3 lots of record, creating 2 parcels of ground largely located on the east side of Chateau Lane, west of Fox Creek Road, being lots 202, 203, and 204 of the Fox Creek Valley subdivision, plat number 6, recorded in Book 120, pages 4 and 5, along with a tract of land in the west 1/2 of Section 32, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, and to be hereafter known as Fox Creek Valley Plat Number 6 Adjustment Plat, second reading.
Members of the city council, there any questions regarding the bill now after second reading? The department would be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
Any other question? All right. See, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Eden.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall, Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo, Councilmember Crayons,
Yep.
Councilmember Albers.
We do not have any, moving on the agenda, no first readings from hearings with favorable city recommendations, and the resolutions will be part of the consent agenda. So as part of the consent agenda, I do have a request. We can do separately the master plan update committee, where I'll ask for a separate motion on that with the change as posted there. So if there's no objection, the rest of the items will remain as part of the consent agenda. Yep. All right. Councilmember Marshall makes motion for approval of the consent agenda, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, regarding the master plan update committee, we do have before us several appointments for the master plan update committee. For Ward 1, as noted here, memo Elizabeth Broyles, Ward 3, Ed Conway, and Ward 6, Deborah Coleman. I did speak with Ms. Broyles, and due to some matters, she just learned that her time will be restricted, and therefore she'd like to step aside from serving on the master plan committee. However, you noticed she still will proceed with serving as an alternate for the Historic Preservation Commission. So hearing that, I also understand that former council member Teresa Clark from Ward 1 would like to serve on the master plan update committee. And so therefore I'd like to ask for a motion that would be for Teresa Clark of Ward 1, Ward 3, and Conway is noted, Ward 6, Deborah Coleman. So we have Councilmember Nian, and that's seconded by Councilmember Rambo. We have any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Thank you. All right, moving on, anything under miscellaneous as part of our main meeting? Okay, seeing none, then we'll look for a motion to adjourn our main council meeting, and then we'll move back into the work session. So we'll have a motion to adjourn made by Councilmember Albers, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Now we're going to resume back into the work session.
Mayor Garitano, may we have a restroom break?
Sure, if there's no objection from the council, we can take a couple of minutes break here. 7:19, is minutes work for everyone? Okay, so we'll resume by 7:24. to our work session. Okay. All right, thanks again, everyone, and appreciate everyone's patience as we resume our work session for tonight. So following through on the agenda, we do have several for information items. So at this point, does anyone have any questions or comments related to the four information items? This would be the time to raise them. Okay. Seeing none, then yes, if you do have any questions, certainly follow up with the staff after tonight's meeting. There are memorandums attached to each of these items. So we'll proceed to the for action. First item under City Council, the Latitude North 38, and I'll ask Director Vunich to present this so we can resume.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, as you know, this particular project has been the subject of many discussions over the past few months. And tonight, I think Mr. Lee, the Department of Planning, and our city attorney team would like to keep it as simple as possible in terms of the steps that are before you. The Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this particular project. At that time, it was in a different form, and many of the design components have been changed based upon input both from the City Council and then the Department of Planning and the Department of Public Works. Those changes are now reflected in an updated plan that was part of the packet of information that was provided to you for tonight's discussion. Along the way, the City Council has authorized the preparation of a set of draft conditions that might be applied to this project if it receives a favorable vote. Those draft conditions were circulated to City Council and to the development entity and their attorneys. Those draft conditions received comments back from the development entity and their attorney, and also you as City Council provided comments, which were all incorporated into the final form. Most recently, the City Council asked that a cooperation agreement be developed between the city and the development entity, stipulating as clearly as possible the responsibilities of the two parties. So tonight, that's where the department would like to start. The development agreement, for all intents and purposes, didn't necessarily things that the development entity had sought. Quite simply, it spoke to that Main Street would be constructed as in accordance with general practice, which means 1/2 of a 70-foot right-of-way with certain street and streetscape improvements associated with it. The city would credit the traffic generation assessment fee, which it has done often for developments that have extraordinary requirement. Most recently, I would note Main Street Crossing and the villages at Brightleaf received those credits for certain activities. Additionally, the development agreement stipulated certain payments between the parties. One for the extraordinary land dedication to create the Main Street portion of the right-of-way along the petitioner or development entity's frontage, and then a payment from them to the city for Main Street construction. I would note, as this has progressed, much of that has changed. Tonight, the petitioner is proposing, as part of the cooperation agreement, that they will construct within the 40-foot wide dedication of land 1/2 of Main Street along their frontage. I want to emphasize that is not the full street. Again, the full street would resemble almost identically that street that is part of Main Street Crossing. This is only 1/2 of the required street. And that's typical because, again, anything other than 1/2 of the right-of-way and improvements within the right-of-way along the petitioner's frontage is considered off-site. And off-site improvements cannot necessarily be required, and that's why oftentimes you have cooperation or development agreements or other things along those lines, such as credits to the traffic generation assessment fee. The payment would be foregone as well. That from the city and that from the development entity to the city. So tonight, what they are proposing is a 55 lot plan. Construction of Main Street, one half of it within a 40-foot wide land dedication. The release of rights for these lots, 3 lots, to Crestview Drive, and completion of improvements to Etherton Road. Those improvements would mirror those on Etherton Road and Main Street crossing. The city for that would credit the TGA, which has been a traditional practice, and that's all. Important to note too that there have been modifications to the plan. As you can see, the alleys that once served the units behind, or excuse me, that would be next to Village Green have been removed, green space increased, and in lieu of that, front entry garage is consistent with another set of units in association with the project. So all told, there's been a number of modifications through this iterative process that the City Council has been part of. But I just want to summarize a 55 unit plan, the construction of one half of Main Street along the petitioner's frontage. That Main Street would be constructed in land dedicated at 40 feet of width along the frontage. And the development and improvements of Etherton Road. And then finally, the release of rights to Crestview Drive, which is critical for the future construction of the full Main Street project. Number of items have been pulled together for your consideration, but the first action tonight is again on the appeal, which was submitted by the petitioner, the development entity. And then if favorable toward the appeal, the authorization to prepare legislation for the next meeting of City Council. Mr. Lee worked very hard on the summary document that's been provided as part of tonight's consideration. I know he is available via Zoom. And obviously the city attorney and the Department of Planning and the Department of Public Works are available as well. So from the perspective of the process, a lot of changes have occurred over the time span. Many of those I believe to be positive and reflective of the City Council's comments. And so tonight the department awaits the direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Vunich. City Administrator Lee, do you wish to comment at this time?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. And I do apologize, everyone. My voice is a little off. I am running a fever right now, so I do apologize. But just to piggyback off what Joe was presenting, he did a great job at doing it. Really tonight, I wanted to get across in the summary documents, but really what the developer was putting forth, just because they've made it clear in their essence that if we don't approve as the council, the 55 units, that they would not proceed. So that's just a consideration to keep in mind. That said, right now, the current motion that stands on the floor, and this is where we kind of get more to the procedural piece where we may need John's assistance, our city attorney's assistance just a bit. The current motion on the floor is to draft legislation approving the N38 development and rezoning requests, including the conditions outlined in the current cooperation agreement. So what's in the current cooperation agreement that was not changed at the last meeting, that's where the credits for the land dedication, the one-time payment was included. Also on top of that, it still included the construction of Main Street along their frontage. But tonight, if the council were wanting to accommodate some of the developers' requests to changing that cooperation agreement, there are a couple items that would need to be done. Right now, that current motion on the floor would have 53, the current cooperation agreement included in the motion on the floor has 53 units approved instead of 55. The developer has requested the 55 over the 53. The other item that the developer has requested from our current cooperation agreement is the removal of the credit for the land dedication and relinquishing rights to Crestview Drive. And on top of that as well, removing the one-time payment from the developer to the city for Main Street construction. They would then be fully responsible for constructing their section of Main Street, improvements from back front of homes to back of street curbs, and the actual street itself coming in at about 24 feet, 24 and a half feet. The other item to really look into tonight and to consider is the scaled back version of Main Street. And if the city council is comfortable with this current proposal, I would like to also note that if this development were to proceed, that we could, and this would not at all hinder our abilities to go and try to acquire the necessary land dedication on the north side, the 10 feet, along with the relinquishment of rights to Crestview Drive from the north. So the main questions to ask tonight, though, is with this development proposal, it is currently proposing this scaled back version of Main Street. So I would just recommend to the council, if the scaled back version, it's no guarantee that we'll be able to get the necessary land dedications on the northern side in order for it to proceed in a timely fashion. So we are looking at the scaled back version tonight. That said, if that is acceptable, then we would potentially be able to get into the request from the developer for the credit, removal of the land dedication credit, and the relinquishment of Crestview Drive rights, and the removal of that one-time payment, the acceptance of that TGA credit equaling approximately $158,000, and then the consideration of 55 units versus the 53. The department is available for any questions, but hopefully the summary and the chart that was provided could help clarify some of these items, but we're more than happy to answer any questions too. Thank you.
Thank you. So if everyone could refer to the file that is attached, and Travis, I'll ask that you get Exhibit A prepared to put up on the screen. So on the first page, you will see that we have that motion on the floor as it is right now. And the motion that is on the floor is to draft legislation approving the North 38 development and rezoning request, including the conditions outlined in the current cooperation agreement. So as noted here, there is a chart called Exhibit A. And so to ease the process, because this is where I think we had some challenges here, we're going to seek if there's any changes that will be made to these discussion items that you see listed in front of you. We'll take each one by one, and then at that point, it will be presented to the council if someone wishes to make a change from what is noted in the original cooperation agreement. I think that will be simpler if we address each one, and then we'll get to a point where we have full picture here of what the council either will approve or will not approve. So with that, I'll ask perhaps Director Vunich if you're able to, for each of these items, we'll start with the first one. You can, speak to that, what is currently there, and then we'll pause and ask the council if there is any motion to make any change specific to that item, and then we'll keep moving through here. That sound good?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, the first question is, who's responsible for constructing the portion of Main Street along the development's frontage? And that would be the developer, as spelled out in the draft condition.
And to add on to that, Mayor, with your permission, at this time, the developer is not requesting any changes to that section of the current cooperation agreement. So in this case, it seems as if the original cooperation agreement and what the developer is proposing, they are both consistent. So in that case, they're just kind of going through procedurally, there would be no need for an amendment as long as the council is okay with this portion of the cooperation agreement.
Okay, and I think maybe for Councilmember Rambo, we can read that, what it says currently in the cooperation agreement. Does that help you? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to take that or do you want?
Mr. Mayor, I was just following your leads. You said one by one and
Yep. So read what's the original cooperation agreement there for the council to be aware of.
well, the original cooperation agreement stipulated that they would build their portion of Main Street along their frontage. The developer has agreed to that.
Okay, so at this point right now, is there anyone that would first like to make a motion to change what is there? We'll see if there is a motion. If not, we'll see if there's a question. I don't see any hands up for a motion. Does anybody have any question regarding that item? Councilmember May.
Yes, Director Bonich. Do contractors other than those that are contracted through the city ever built a public road other than the city? Why, I'm just confused. Why is a contractor building a public road in Wildwood?
Yes, almost every development that has a system of streets, for example, residential subdivisions, we require the developer to dedicate the right of way to the city for public use forever, and we require the developer to build the street and associated improvements, including stormwater. The logic is that the development is creating the need for additional improvement, infrastructure improvements, and without the development, they wouldn't be necessary. So it's only appropriate the developer build them.
Very badly worded question on my part then. It isn't the fact that they're responsible for the construction, but I'm queasy with them being in charge of the execution of the construction. Are these plans and specs to our code and they build to our plan and specs and we inspect the work to accept it?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, okay, Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, Joe, I don't know if this is even doable, but it would help me tremendously if you could put up the plan and show us exactly where the road's going to be and where Crestview is going to remain. That would be extremely helpful.
Question, I think Mr. Newberry accommodate that.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, Travis, if you would like to share that visual concept that was provided by the department as well, this one and the just that shows that dedication piece too. But first we can ask Ms. McCutcheon if that would be appropriate, the one that was just shared.
Yes, I'm just trying to I'm having a hard time visualizing where the new street will be in proximity to the current Crestview Drive. So if you can highlight it somehow, just so I can get a clear picture in my head of what it's going to be.
Can you zoom in a little bit more, maybe, because there are colors there. Maybe we can do it. If you like this and then zoom in, so folks could see the differentiation there. So here you have the Village Green, which is on the right side. Travis is moving the cursor, so that would be the city right there. And the subject property is where Travis is moving the cursor. Then after he moves it, we'll ask him to zoom it in so you can see closer where the road is.
So Ms. McCutcheon, on this image, Crestview Drive is not highlighted with a color, and Crestview Drive is identified by its name. So that's the 25-foot wide parcel of ground that contains roughly the 12-foot wide asphalt pavement.
And then Joe, it might be appropriate to add in what the developer was also suggesting about having, instead of some type of, gate at the top of Crestview, but then instead having some access point that would be along the constructed main street that would allow access from Crestview Drive and then effectively closing out the end piece of Crestview Drive.
Well, Mr. Lee's provided the explanation. Again, I was just responding to Ms. McCutcheon's question. Where is this portion of the constructed street relative to Crestview Drive? Crestview Drive is the area that is not colored. The area that is shown south of that along Petitioner's frontage is what is to be constructed in terms of Main Street.
Can you zoom in a little bit more, Travis? Maybe can you explain the difference in the colors right there?
The yellow color is the streetscape. So that would be the sidewalk, street trees, the street signs, etc. And then the, what I would call light red is the actual street construction.
Okay, do we have, Councilman McCutcheon, do you have a follow-up question before we take other questions?
Thank you. I'm still trying to figure, what is the gray in between? What is it? The yellow and the green? What is that gray? That's the street?
That's the
That would
street.
that'd be a sidewalk, Miss McCutcheon.
In the future, it would be a sidewalk walk?
Yeah,
Then where's
under-
the temporary street or however you want to phrase it? Where's that?
that would be that where Travis is overlaying the cursor right now. That would be the proposed street that would then run parallel to Crestview Drive.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yellow sidewalk area that's part of the overall streetscape set forth in the proposed conditions.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. So will cars be able to, if they construct a street and then the current Crestview Drive street is over here, will cars be able to go from that street they construct over to the current Crestview?
Ms. McCutcheon, Foles Engineering has been working with the development entity, the petitioner, and they've created a solution that, as Mr. Lee just mentioned, does not require a gate at the end of Crestview Drive at Etherton Road. There is a point along the proposed construction where a crossover could occur and ultimately create, I think, a much safer and more functional situation. Good news that we identified tonight for City Council and the mayor is that at the last meeting in January, Mr. Brown, our Director of Public Works, rightly so, questioned the engineering associated with the half street. And now we have an engineering firm that has done many projects in St. Louis County, designing this and saying that it is a functional and safe approach. So we think we have a solution to that Crestview Drive parallel Main Street that is actually better and safer than what was originally proposed by the Department of Planning, which was potentially Jersey barriers and a gate. So I think we can do something.
So when a driver crosses both of those roads, then they're going to be on the Crestview side that is a private road. So are they going to need an agreement with the residents who live right there?
Well, again, the intent isn't to bring public traffic onto Crestview Drive, a private street. The intent is to create a 24.5-foot wide pavement that will accommodate public traffic both on an easterly and westerly direction.
Thank you.
Councilmember Albers.
It is actually not, but the intent would be is to create a 2-lane street here, and then ultimately at the point where Crestview Drive is available to the city along with additional dedication to its north, we would basically replicate Main Street in Main Street crossing. That's the intent. Because again, we have the intent would be to make this section of Main Street from Etherton Drive on the west to City Hall on the east, the identical design as the Main Street and Main Street crossing. It will not look like that, no. No. But the intent is for the city to build a portion of Main Street as part of Village Green at a future date. And then, as Mr. Lee has mentioned, the intent of the city council with the dedication of money as part of this year's budget was to negotiate dedication and easements with the remaining owners on the north side of Crestview Drive.
Got into question point 2.
Yeah.
Regarding,
Possibly.
yeah. So maybe before we do jump into that a little bit further, anyone still have anything related to discussion point 1, which is who is responsible for constructing the portion of Main Street abutting the proposed development? And the answer is, as listed there, the developer will construct the portion of Main Street that directly fronts the development. There's no change proposed. Does anyone have any changes? Otherwise, any questions or clarification items related to that? Councilmember Farmer.
I'm not sure if this is a clarification or not, but I guess I'm still trying to I get that the developer's going to pay for the road, but I'm trying to wrap my head around like what's on the far side of the road. Is it a median? Is there a curb? Like what's going to prevent people from just sort of randomly rolling onto a different road?
I think that get to that number 2.
Oh,
Because
okay.
2 is-
We'll wait for 2 then.
Right? That's what you're describing in there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so back to still number 1. Before we move on, I'm going to ask one last time. It seems like then we'll move on to discussion item number 2. What version of Main Street is being built? So Director Vunich, go ahead.
So again, the intent of the developer is to build the full streetscape from the front of the dwellings to back of curb. Full streetscape includes street trees, street lights, street signs, and the wider sidewalks as you see throughout town center. From back of curb to the edge of the 40-foot wide dedication that is planned, there would be a 24.5-foot pavement plus a 5-foot green strip that would replace what the department had originally thought would be the Jersey barriers. So there'll be a grass strip approximately 5 feet in width. It'll provide the separation between the new public street and existing Crestview Drive.
Is it like going to be a berm or is it just grass?
Yeah.
It's and the grade change between the new streetscape improvements and the roadway. And so it's not necessarily a passable area based upon grade. Certainly, there could be some things done to ensure that crossover traffic wouldn't occur. Attractive things, but things that could be done.
Okay.
Again, I mentioned attractive things. They could be plantings, they could be boulders and landscaping, things like that. So as there's a clear demarcation between public and private, but not doing it in necessarily a way that detracts from it.
So I guess if I may on this one. So I don't know if Joe, if this is going to be you or this might be a Rick thing, but whatever we're going to put in the middle here, when and if and when the city goes to complete the road, my question is, how much of this section of the road that the developer is building are we going to be redoing because we have to put in whatever the medians are on the other side of the street and all that kind of stuff?
If you use the template in Main Street Crossing, I believe the 2 drive lanes are at about 13 feet. Yeah, and they're 13 feet. That's my recollection, but 11. So obviously, we're asking the developer to build a 2-lane road that's 24.5 feet in width. So ultimately, if we want to do a replica of the Main Street and Main Street Crossing, they would remove approximately 1/2 of it. That 1/2 would ultimately become primarily the median, and then the fire district crossover to the westbound lane.
Joe, to add to that, I did want to bring up the other conceptual plan that was showing that you could have it pushed down quite a bit. And it would pretty much allow for us to not have to remove any additional street. We would have to convert a half of the street though into parking along the developer's frontage when the full main street could be constructed. Would you mind kind of diving into that a little bit, Joe? The second option that was provided.
Well, certainly, as Tom just explained, with 24.5 feet, we could do parallel parking, which only requires approximately 9 feet of width. So we would end up having a little wider portion of the street and begin our median at the grass strip. Again, we didn't require parking in Main Street crossing, but that certainly is an option here.
Okay. My question is this. One of my bigger concerns is however much the developers are going to pay for this road, whatever that is of $500,000, whatever. Ostensibly, the city is crediting them in one way or the other for this work. And so my concern is when we go to do the rest of this road, how much of that money are we sort of throwing away because we've already credited it and then we're going to spend a bunch of money to redo it? And I'm usually the guy that likes to get the things done right the first time around. So this whole thing makes me super nervous, just to make that clear.
I think Mr. Brown and I would concur the optimum approach is we build a full Main Street, but for many, many years, we've been debating how to gain rights to Crestview Drive and how to obtain dedication. Many of us, city administrator, economic development manager, directors, departments, and city councils have tried that. And as you can see, we have Crestview Drive and that's it. And so from the perspective of the department, if we're wanting Main Street to be extended and we believe the development is appropriate, this is probably the best opportunity to get that started.
I understand that part. I guess I'm trying to figure out though, I mean, in theory, we could put a road there if we wanted to. I mean, I've looked at the budget. I don't think we have $3 million sitting around to do that anyways. So this is an extended plan. So I guess I guess maybe I'm trying to figure out, I get what they're trying to do, but what I'm seeing is an entrance into the neighborhood, which doesn't generally benefit the city in any way unless we build a connector part in front of Village Green. And then when we go to redo this, I don't know, Rick, if you can nod your head, this is going to be a substantial amount of money we're repeating to put in whatever we want to put in there, right?
I think really there are some engineering details to get ironed out here. This is a schematic design at this point, so there is some engineering yet to be resolved. I think Thomas was trying to describe and Joe was trying to describe there are essentially two options here. To put a 2-lane road in, you can widen it to the north or you can widen it to the south. If you widen it to the south, we already have plans for on-street parking through Village Green. So you would use that on-street parking as one of the 2 lanes essentially. So that cost wouldn't be lost if you put in also on-street parking in front of the new development. It would be used as on-street parking in theory in the future, so you wouldn't have to remove it. If you widen it to the north, there is a potential that that widening, that extra lane would have to be removed unless we changed the concept that we've been proposing and unfortunately eliminated the median, the raised median, and just left it in as pavement.
It may be me. I don't know. I feel like we're just trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, and it is just sinking an enormous amount of money into something that doesn't seem. I get we got a lot of work to do, and we'll do the work or whatever, but like it just seems somewhat ill-conceived currently.
So maybe, well, I'll ask if you want to make a motion related to this right now, or if you're going to factor your thinking as part of, the greater decision. because there is still that motion on the floor. But at this point, yeah, and there's still a couple more hands up, but I do want to just check to see, based on this, do we have a motion to either change it? Otherwise, it's as it's noted right now. And again, we're trying to tackle these one by one, just make it more efficient. So Director Vunich, I see you're back up. You have anything else that you wish to add?
On this particular item, no.
Okay, so let me see what other comments come up. I've got several hands that have gone up. So Councilmember Albers, Rambo, Dodwell, and Ottenberg.
You have the right of ways. The other side of
Previous proposal was 12 lots on approximately 3 acres. And access was intended to be to Etherton Road to a portion of Main Street. We didn't have the length of frontage. It was about 300 feet less. And the dedication was the same. We were still asking for the majority of the future Main Street to come from this property to make it align with the existing segments of Main Street that are constructed. So we've been consistent, at least in asking for the dedication and certain improvements. Well, again, we did not at that time have development across the street. So yes, it would have been some type of temporary road that would provide access to the 12 lots, and then incrementally build the improvements as development occurred, both to the north side of Crestview Drive and east of the subject site.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I think Main Street was probably the first street platted in our master plan in 1995. That'd be my guess. And that has always been envisioned as being a sort of a boulevard, I would call it, like it is currently today and like it is in Main Street crossing. I think we need the whole road. This half step, as Joe was saying, it could be very costly, and it just feels stupid to neck the traffic down onto a smaller version and then pop it back out and hope that we can resolve it in later years. I think that most of the objections that have been made to this project, that the traffic, I'm confident in the answer that we've gotten from both departments. The same with retention, on-site water retention, the rental management concern. Those are legitimate concerns that people had. I think we've done a pretty good job of, responding to those and making sure that they're not going to be a problem in the future and so forth. But this road thing, that it's almost feels like a deal breaker to me. We can, if we approve this without having some plan to go forward and do the entire road, I think we may be shooting ourselves in the foot, at least in future years. And we have this hokey, weird thing in front of our nice new park. I would rather have some sort of, at least we're going to make another effort to get the right of way on the north side and do the road the right way the first time. And then the money that we're supposed to be spending on these Jersey barriers and hokey stuff like that, we can just engineer the road and do it properly. And it's probably not going to be nearly as expensive. I don't know what kind of numbers we're throwing around here and so forth. So it feels like we have the cart before the horse a little bit. So I don't know if anybody has an answer to that question, but I would be reluctant to support this if we don't have some sort of vision for how we're going to make Main Street. So that's just a comment. I don't have any amendment to make. Do you have any observations along those lines?
Councilmember Rambo, I think I mentioned that this has been a priority for a number of city councils over the years. In 2018, we purchased the 2 properties, the Farm Village Green. We made an a significant effort at that time to try to address Crestview Drive and future Main Street.
But it's always been request-based, politely
Yeah.
asking the folks, and they come back with, no, you got to buy the whole property or you have to pay us 10 times what it's worth. And we've just discussed those sorts of things. So I don't know if we have taken a firmer approach with the residents or not, because that road is atrocious. It is at the point where you can no longer call it a paved road. It has potholes, patches, and so forth. And I'm not sure why they're so hung up on it, except that it's part of this new development and they don't like it. And I understand all of that, but hanging on to a substandard road just for spite. The ditch looks like it floods. The phone poles are several feet into their yards. I don't think they're giving up anything, and we can make it beautiful. And so I just do not understand the knee-jerk reaction against this road. And so I guess I would like to, if there's some way that we can take another run at this and hopefully have better success, even though many have tried and failed, we'll take another tilt at the windmill.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Lee can comment on that.
Yes, with your permission, Mayor.
Sure.
Thank you. What I would anticipate is if this design were to be, and this plan were to be approved, then the whole department, the Department of Planning, the Department of Public Works, and the Department of Administration would definitely move forth and move quickly to try to get the necessary dedications on the northern side, that 10 feet, and then the rights to Crestview Drive from the north. We would have a small bit of time during site plan review, which if we were able to acquire that land dedication and rights to Crestview Drive, we could go forth with the real Main Street. That we do have monies put aside this year for the acquisition, and if say this development were to be approved and a road's going down that way, I do think that does help the city's argument to do it right, and hopefully the residents would be open to it. On the north, the developer has indicated that they would be very much in favor of doing the real Main Street, but it all does come down to whether or not those residents on the northern side are willing to provide the adequate dedication that we need in order to build this correctly. And I agree, I don't really want to go with the half measure either. It's the best way to do this is to do it right and actually construct it as our engineering firm has already set forth. That's the safest and, most aesthetically pleasing. When we all think of Main Street, that's what we truly want. And in that case, Joe, you can provide a little bit more information on the timeline with the site plan and the council. That site plan would eventually go to planning and zoning for review. And then that would also come back to council where it could be pulled for review as well. So that is something we could discuss further if, maybe it's a contingency on getting that easement on the northern side, that dedication on the northern side.
Many on the city council are aware of our timeframes. If the zoning is ultimately approved by city council, there's at least a 3 or 4 month process relative to the site development plan, potentially another 3 to 4 months relative to the improvement plans, the construction drawings. And so we're talking sometime probably next year before construction might be ready to proceed, just because of the processes associated with taking ground that doesn't have a lot of improvements and adding improvement.
All right, we had a couple more council members that wish to speak. So I have council members Dodwell, Ottenberg, and Edens. Again, I'll just kindly ask if you do have a motion you want to propose regarding the change, please do go ahead and make it. But otherwise, we'll let you ask questions if you wish. Councilmember Dodwell.
First off, I'd like to take it. No motion needs to be made on this. It needs to go forward as is being agreed upon between the developer and the city of Wildwood. And here's the reason why. This is a start to the project, number one. Number two, they are willing to pay for half of that roadway up to the city standards that we require under the guidance of the city for construction and completion. That's a plus. It saves us hopefully about half of the funds if we do the road construction properly, with the thought in mind that we will obtain the rights to the northern section of this particular road. Number two, or I guess number three, I've seen this in several other areas throughout the county and the city and through cities in other parts of the United States. There was a project that I worked on in the city of St. Louis where we did not have the rights to the street. We went ahead and completed the project. Once the project was completed, the residents in the area realized that it was a good thing for that particular location within the city of St. Louis, actually. And they became willing and more eager to acquiesce their rights so that they could get the rest of the road improvements with it. I'm not saying that's going to happen with this project, but I can't imagine why it would not move them towards wanting to have an agreement with the city to provide access rights for their large property. Those of us who live in smaller neighborhoods within the city of Wildwood have watched as development has occurred around us and have been willing to acquiesce some of our property for the good of the city as a whole. So I will make the motion that we move forward on this particular component of the list of things that need to be done as it has been written and discussed between both parties.
Okay, so I did check with our city attorney. Sounds like you're proposing to keep that discussion item number 2 as is.
As is.
So no motion is necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Only to change
making
it.
sure I put it out there.
Councilmember. Yep, no problem. Councilmember Ottenberg, did you have anything you?
Yeah,
wish to
thank you,
change?
Mr. Mayor. Director Vunich, would you mind putting back up on the screen the picture/drawing that we were looking at earlier, where we could see the proposed street, and then scroll to the right-hand side of the picture where we see where it basically connects with Main Street as it appears in front of City Hall.
I appreciate it.
So Mr. Ottenberg, this is the revised plan as has been discussed briefly today, and then obviously the master plan for the Village Green. For the most part, the reason the dedication is more so on the south side of Crestview Drive is it helps make the alignment between the two ends better. There'll be some adjustments on the north side. As you can see, we're going from a 104-foot right-of-way in front of City Hall to a 70-foot right-of-way through the Crestview Drive area to meet with a 70-foot right-of-way in Main Street Crossing. But generally, the south side is the area where we need the greatest amount of land dedication to make it all work.
Okay, thank you very much. That provides some additional perspective to this. I guess I share some of the concerns of Council Members Farmer and Rambo regarding this narrower street serving as a connector to Main Street out front here down to Etherton, whichever you prefer. This is sort of a showpiece for our city center. We've already talked about how we want to do Village Green the right way. And that's the reason we decided that we're very interested in having power cables buried underground rather than them being above ground. And then with the proposed all-inclusive playground, we've talked about how we want to do that right as well and not cut back on any of the aspects of the playground, but in this particular case, it seems like we're willing to settle for a street that is less than optimal for something that's in our city center. That's, I guess, my general comments.
Thank you.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes, one of the great frustrations of being on council is if you have information that you'd like to share with your fellow members or with the public, sometimes you have to be very edited due to previous closed session information. And so I'm going to make a comment tonight with that in mind. But this is where I would ask the mayor or perhaps Councilmember Bros to correct my memory. So only saying what I can publicly is I've been on council since 2019. And I can assure you that discussions about the north and the south side and the vision for the road have occurred even prior to me being on council. What I feel comfortable with saying publicly is the general position of the city at the time was without the south side playing ball, so to speak, pursuing the north side is a useless endeavor at that time. And so there was a position of we need a catalyst to occur in order to move forward. One way to look at this is, yes, it's half of the road, but that's what they're responsible for. And could this be the catalyst for completion? And could this allow us to be competitive in a grant? Because we did have that with the Main Street streetscape, or not Main Street, Manchester Road streetscape for road improvements. Could this help us be more competitive in a bid by showing that we've already dedicated efforts into completing what was, literally half the width of the project? The other thing that I want to point out is I feel like, unless I'm misstating, concerns that were brought up by my colleagues at the last meeting were such that we need to make sure the developer is responsible for completing and constructing their fair share and half of the road. And they've come back and clarified that, yes, we're going to do this in lieu of cash payment to the city. We are going to build this for you. And then the comments are centered around, but we're not really sure if we want that because there may be other consequences. So it's just, we're directing the staff to pursue these lines of inquiry. And that's what the developer's trying to do as well. And I feel like as a council, we're chasing our own tail. And I don't mind anybody that disagrees with me. That makes it better. I think healthy debate is, but I'm not sure I understand everybody's position and what they're looking for. And if I can't understand it, the public can't understand it, the developer can't understand it, and staff can't understand it. So, yeah.
Director Vunich?
No, sir. Thank you, though.
All right. Well, don't believe,
yeah.
Councilmember Rambo.
One more
We
real
do
quick.
have Councilmember Mabry as well.
I know we already have a motion on the floor, and so I'm trying to solve this problem. I have, I hung my hat on the catalyst concept that Ms. Edens was talking about, but I'm really reluctant to roll the bones. And so our choice is either to build in a contingency or, as I said, roll the bones. And so I'm going to put this out as a straw man, and we can vote it up or down as an amendment, and then we'll get back to the main motion. And if, so we get to make that decision. And so I would suggest an amendment to the motion that we build in some sort of a contingency for making a final effort or another effort, the 20th effort or whatever on the north side to get those easements as part of this process. And it doesn't put any additional burden on the developer. They might be uncomfortable with the lack of clarity, but it seems workable. Is that I guess I'll ask Mr. Young, is that even reasonable? Is it feasible to add some sort of contingency to line item 2?
I'm not sure if we know enough at this point
fair
to
enough.
give enough specificity to that.
Okay, so that's fine. I'm ready to roll the bones then.
All right, Councilmember Mabry.
Thank you. That would be what I see is pink and green, but people are calling light red and yellow. Yeah, that's the schematic showing who's responsible for what regarding the road. And then the question will be for Mr. Lee.
Can you just speak a little bit more into the microphone? Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you kindly. If you can, there's the extreme right side on my drawing, at the extreme right side of what I'm showing as green as the city's responsibility for the paving. To the right of that, you see the island of what is currently Main Street. It's the end of the rounded island, if you knew to put your cursor about where that is. I'm not necessarily seeing where we have to demolish work we've already installed. If the developer's installing the yellow or green southern portion of the road in front of their property, and we then are, and then they are also going to just dedicate the light red or pink area. That's correct. Is that correct?
That is correct. They would construct the improvements per city standard and inspection underneath the outlined red section where it's the proposed dedication. And at that point, they would fully dedicate it after its construction. So that would be done immediately upon them having the road functional and up to city code.
It looks to me like the road aligns near perfectly with the end of the island. And the Crestview Drive, whether we cajole the 7 properties into allowing their and dedicating their easement to us, it looks to me like the 10-foot grade area to the north of that, combined with what's Crestview Drive, allows the island and allows the full width of the road. Am I even close? This is going somewhere.
So there's two versions, Councilmember Mabry. One being that two versions of the proposed scaled back Main Street. One way we could do it is that we would have it more infiltrate, and this is what the schematic, if you will. This is not an engineered plan. It was just more shown to kind of show the breakout. But this schematic here is really taking into account having it push more towards the south, so that what you would do is you would eventually turn the developer section of Main Street, along with our own section that's owned by the city, into off-street parking. That's most likely the cheapest way to build a scaled back Main Street and not have it least impactful to cost moving forward, because if you were to push a little bit north, yes, we would be able to build the scaled back Main Street, but it would most likely end with us, when we get acquire the necessary land dedications on the north, we'd have to go back and pretty much cut back half of the road. So the best way to look at that, if we were going to, obviously we'd go after the right of way on the north side, also rights to Crestview, because then it does line up really well. But the other component would be, if it has to go forward with the scaled back Main Street, you would have off-street parking on both the Village Green site and adjacent to the proposed development. If we did it that way, it would be the most limited impact to the overall design, if only moving forward with the scaled back version, if that makes sense. I'm more than happy to clarify if further clarification is needed.
I had envisioned the new Main Street running from current Main Street over to the west to very closely replicate current Main Street in front of City Hall. I'm not seeing where we have to tear out half of the pink to the north or the green to the north over Village Green. I'm not favoring the cutback version, especially when I don't see the damage that's being done by putting in the pink and the green part in front of the proposed development. I'm seeing is we're just adding another half by roping in Crestview Drive and the 10-foot right of way that we're going to be getting as a future acquisition target. those are available either through condemnation or by providing for what the property owners there can be convinced is equitable payment. So I'll be confused. I don't mind it. I'll be wondering why we have to cut out half of what we're putting in order to achieve the full width of what it looks like comes close to a replicate of City Drive of Main Street in front of City Hall.
Yes.
So am I way off base, Mr. Lee?
No, you're not way off base there, Mr. Mabry. This is like mentioned, this is a schematic. It's definitely not backed by any. I put this together. It's not an engineered drawing or anything along those lines. That said, this was looking at it from the perspective of being able to add that on-street parking on the southern side. So you'd probably see a slight. You'd see that kind of common ground area where the street trees are. You'd probably see that shrink just a bit with additional pavement, and then you turn that into off-street parking. That is by far what I'm looking at least from the initial schematics from the engineering firms, is probably the most tenable option to avoid future cost. But if we were to push it up north, and this isn't to scale, by the way, that's why I want to make clear that this isn't perfect. It was more so to show who's doing what. But if we were to use the version 2 is what was proposed, it would be pushing that pavement up north further and having less room on the south, which would not allow for, it's pretty much, do you want this street up more northern, like right up against Crestview, or do you want it pushed down a little bit? If you push it down a little bit, we're able to add that on-street parking. But Rick or Joe, I think Rick might be better at answering this with the 2 versions that have been presented thus far. It might be a good idea to maybe add some background there too, if you don't mind, Mr. Brown.
I guess the one thing I would point out, I don't know, maybe there's some confusion, but I guess the ultimate proposed template is more or less based, and Joe has referenced this, based on Main Street west of Atherton, not in front of City Hall. So we're trying to build towards a 2 lanes Main Street with a raised median, similar that's already in place in Main Street crossing. So that might be part of your confusion.
You're saying we are trying to replicate Main Street in front of City Hall? Or
No, we're not.
necking it down on purpose,
Right.
matching the neighborhood to the west. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have a raised median. I haven't memorized it.
Yes, they do.
But it's appreciably narrower than City Hall, the area of City Hall.
The overall roadway template is narrower than what's in front of City Hall.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But you have diagonal parking on both sides of Main Street,
And
where you would only have it on the south side.
correct, we don't have the parallel parking in our design. We do have, we don't have the angled parking in our design, pardon me. We do have parallel parking through the Village Green in our current design. And that would be used as one of the 2 lanes.
I thought
Potentially.
I thought I saw a rendering of diagonal parking in front of Village Green.
Correct. On-street parallel parking.
Diagonal.
The graphic, correct. The graphic that's been shown tonight is an older graphic. Unfortunately, it's not up to date. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, that's probably hurting too. Probably.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks a
so
lot.
I think we've got a lot of discussion. Again, I'm going to just to try to rein this particular item of discussion, because we do have several more. Just ask you to speak only if you do propose a change. And again, this is just to get to a point where we have consensus on these different discussion items, and then there's the overall vote. So is there anyone that has anything at this time? Okay. Is that, you wish to propose a change to? Sure, go ahead.
Well, when the McBride development was hoping to complete their development, they sent a request to all the residents on both sides of Crestview. And they received 9 out of 13, and 6 was from, and they fronted Crestview Drive. So there has been a lot of effort made, and I know I've been here since 2011, and there's been effort ever since then made. But I'm a little encouraged because they did reach out to the residents on both sides of Crestview, and 9 out of 13, I think, that's a pretty good number. But I don't want anyone to think that and 38th Street is not going to go up in front of the Village Green, correct, Joe? It's not going to be completed all the way up to Village Green.
No, it'll go easterly to the edge of their property and not cross over to our frontage, which is Village Green.
Okay, then no changes proposed for this. So now we will move to item number 3, which is no number of units. I'll let Director Vunich speak. And again, I'll look to see if anyone has any change to propose based on what you see in the original cooperation agreement versus the developer's request. Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, when City Council directed the department to prepare the draft conditions, they recommended 53 units. The developer has made it clear 55 units is essential for the project to move forward. So the developer is requesting 55 units in lieu of 53.
Okay, so do we have any hands up or any questions? Councilmember Kranz?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to give my comments and then I'm going to make a motion. I don't think this is a good development. I think it's grossly overbuilt. It changes the character of the neighborhood. You're squeezing 55 homes on 7 acres right next to the Village Green. I don't think that's very smart. The width of the lots are 20 feet. Your front yard is 20 feet long. 1,300 square feet homes in less than 15 parking spaces on the streets. The property has a history of serious flooding, and traffic will greatly increase when the park is completed. Now remember, this council recently approved a Brightleaf development. It was high density with lots and lots of houses, just like Latitude North 38. Brightleaf developer asked for 34 houses on 8 acres, and the council said, this is too many, and reduced the number to 30. Everybody was happy, the residents, the city, and the developer. So the question is, how can this council justify Latitude and 38's request for 55 homes on 7 acres when the council denied 34 homes on 8 acres, saying Brightleaf had too many homes? Now, when you compare both plans, Latitude N38 is asking for 25 more homes compared to Brightleaf's request for 4, and Brightleaf has an extra acre of land. So who are they fooling? No wonder the residents are upset. The council needs to be consistent here, and more importantly, be fair to all developers. At the last meeting, Mr. Vunich said, we apply the Brightleaf zoning, which again is high density with lots and lots of houses. Latitude North 38 will lose about a dozen houses. In other words, about 43 homes would be the number to approve and not 55. Removing about a dozen homes from this plan will not make or break businesses in the town center. And it will make a better plan for Village Green, our town center, in the neighborhood. And remember, the Planning and Zoning Commission turned this plan down because it was not a good fit in the area. I am recommending this council reduce the number of homes to 43 from 55 based on the excessive number of homes requested. 55 is ridiculous. The serious flooding and the increase in traffic from the Village Green. So Mr. Vunich, I like your comment last meeting. And you said this. Once it's built, there is no stepping back. End of quote. Is that true?
That is my experience for more than 40 years doing this type of work.
So let's get this right. I will make a amended motion that a maximum of 43 homes be permitted in the latitude N38 proposal to allow for more green space and street parking and to address the previously mentioned issues, flooding, traffic, and increase in the number of homes. That's my motion. 43 homes.
So you're making a motion, then is that done appropriately? Is there a second to your motion? All right, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. Any discussion then on this motion here? Questions? Councilmember Farmer. And then Councilman.
So. I've driven around, what neighborhood do you say is, or not what that, most similar that we had existing?
55 lots, or 53 lots, whatever the number may be. Actually, we've not approved anything like this other than Canberry. And Canberry is probably the closest to this. Canberry was an R6A with a PRD. That is what is being requested here. Canberry was approximately 15 acres, and they ended up, I believe, with the conversion from the attached townhomes to the detached single family. I think they ended up with about 80 or 88 units. And so I think the math, 15 into 90 is about 6 units per acre. Actually, the intent is all of these streets to be public. The alley was removed, which was behind the units that are closest or nearest to Village Green. Yes, I think the intent is the same specification in terms of the construction would be the same. Again, as you can see, 2 of the T turnarounds are more modified and lesser in extent, whereas the one on the far east is much greater. I concur. At least not in the total number, certainly not. We typically either do stub streets and do temporary turnarounds on the abutting lots, or we do cul-de-sacs when we know that they're not going to be extended to future development. Well, certainly a T turnaround can easily become a stub street that's extended. Two-car garages with a two-car driveway as the approach to the garages. Yes, sir. Well, certainly, I'm going to give you the answer from the town center plan. 2018, a group of volunteers, inclusive of council liaisons, changed the land use category on this particular property from downtown district, the most commercialized area in town center, to neighborhood general. At that time, Mr. Bosworth owned property there and explained that it was his hope to create a more dense development that would complement the downtown district. The group of volunteers supported it. The Planning and Zoning Commission adopted it, and the City Council endorsed and ratified it. So I'm going to tell you that it's not out of the realm of the neighborhood general district that is part of the land use plan of town center.
Still have to change the zoning, right, in order to do this?
Very much so. This is NU non-urban district, NU non-urban resident district zoning. So if they have just 7 acres, they have 2 lots.
So we have a little bit of a conflict because while I certainly appreciate the volunteer effort that was made on the update plan, as I do all of our citizens that do things, at least I know for myself as a council member, I depend greatly on the knowledge bank that is our city staff to advise us as to what may or may not work best. And so while I appreciate all of these things, I'm a little concerned that in the beginning, at least of this process, our Planning and Zoning Commission said, this isn't the greatest plan in the world, right?
Correct.
And so I'm trying to figure out, I mean, to be honest, I don't know the difference between 55 and 53. I think both of those are maybe too many because we're trying to, this plan as it is drawn there looks like we're just trying to fit as many houses in as we possibly can, which is certainly in good direction for a developer to go, but it is not our direction as a city to just rubber stamp these things. I think we want to look at it closely. So, my thing is, we have different problems with this, but the biggest one is I don't see any other neighborhoods, anything close to this that exists currently. And I think that there's a reason that we don't. And that's because it's perhaps not the best planned out thing in the world.
The only comment I would make is, I think from the perspective of most that have discussed this plan, they view it more as a single family plan. And it's more of a multiple family plan. I think it has more similarities to Greenberg Development's proposal down at Taylor Road and Main Street in our downtown district. There we have 188 units on approximately 2.5 acres. So the plan does accommodate density in the right locations. The adopted town center regulating plan says this is an area where higher densities can be considered under appropriate design. The design standards and the architectural guidelines of the town center plan have been applied and generally met. So from the perspective of the department, if you're expecting it to say this is a bad plan, then I'm saying we have a bad town center plan, and that department's not going to say that.
Sure, I appreciate that. So my last question, and then somebody else can take on here. So this is maybe a little too in the weeds, but are all these people going to have trash cans that get picked up, or is this got a single dispensary of garbage?
I don't know that answer, but there is no area that's been set aside under this preliminary design for trash enclosures. But I assume each unit would have a recycler and a trash toters.
And that would be Republic, right? That would pick that up?
Yes, this is Republic Service District. Again, be aware that all of the units in Etherton Road and proposed Main Street have rear entry. So those units would have their toters in the back. And then the internal streets obviously would not be as visible from the 2 public streets, Main Street and Etherton Road.
Yeah, I'm actually less worried about the visibility and more worried about trucks being able to pick them up. I have streets in my neighborhood where they can't get through on the courts.
Public truck that provides residential service, either drive into it and turn around, or are they going to have to back down and do the pickup?
Okay.
Okay, we reminder that we do have a motion on the floor. So Councilmember Mabry, did you have your, okay, go ahead. Button, please. Thank you.
The shock thing that turns on when I don't. This drawing is really drives home my orientation. And I've never seen indication of street parking for this development. I either missed it or thought it so illogical it wouldn't be posed, but is there going to be street parking allowed on Etherton or on the new Crestview / Main Street Drive with this development?
There is planned on-street parking as part of Etherton Road that would emulate or match that required of Main Street crossing on the same street. There is a rack of on-street parking that Mr. Newberry is identifying on the internal street. And then as has been discussed tonight, I believe Mr. Lee and Mr. Brown both mentioned, we can have on-street parking now on Main Street as part of its future development.
That's extremely disquieting to me to know that just now.
I apologize if it was something the department didn't identify that should have. But certainly, we've spent most of our focus on Main Street and number of units and other issues that have been identified by residents who spoke during the public participation. But parking is a concern, but each unit will accommodate at least 4 cars. I think the key point relative to some of the discussion points has been, what's the demographic of the renter here? And the demographic in most instances, I don't think is going to be families with a number of children. It's just my guess, but certainly that's my impression of what's been described by the development entity relative to the other projects they've done in St. Charles County.
The only other question regarding 53 or 55 or anything is I've seen repeat references made to attachment A, property management plan. I don't know that I've ever seen a copy of it.
Yeah, and could I just, maybe just to keep us focused on the items, maybe we can come back to that question because, you know, we're trying to address the discussion items here. So you have good questions, but maybe we'll open it up after we've gone through all. If
Okay.
you haven't had a chance, let's just stay focused on what is the matter at hand right here.
I agree.
So related to units, Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to this specific line item that we're talking about here, the 53 versus 55 and now 43, I guess. I mean, we've been talking about this for almost a year. And I think I brought this up on numerous occasions throughout my time on council, and I'm going to bring it up again. But, you know, we run around in the same circles over and over again. I feel like every time the conversation comes up, we're starting from scratch as if we've never discussed it before and beginning right at the beginning. And to Katie's point earlier, this particular decision is not a final approval of anything. It's just moving it to the next step and preparing legislation potentially for March, which could potentially be delayed to April. We've got an election in April. We're going to turn over half the council in April. And guess what, guys? We're back to square one all over again. So, you know, you can wonder why developers might have little ambiguity in working with us. And, you know, we're the ones that told the department and the city to go to the developer with 53 units. And I don't know what specific month was that, 6 months ago or whenever we started with that, but we asked for 53 and now we're down to a final stage where they're saying 55 and we're at 53. And all of a sudden now we're talking about 43. Why not make it 5? I mean, you know, at the end of the day, these are businesses. And while some people in the city like to paint developer businesses as evil for some reason, you know, if they're coming to us saying we need to do 55 to make this work, then that's where they're at based on their due diligence and the numbers they've crunched. And that doesn't mean we have to agree to it, but it's 55, or if we don't like 55, then we don't do 55. But I mean, to sit here and go in circles and go to 43 and whatever else we want to bring up now this far into the process, you know, like I said, you know, is there a difference between 55 and 53? In my opinion, no. And at the end of the day, we're doing what, 144 units on the other side of the theater? That were
188.
188. Wow, there we go. And nobody seems to have a problem with that density. And in my opinion, this is the heart of downtown. And the heart of any city has high density development. We only have 2% of the city of Wildwood that's zoned for high density development. And in my opinion, it should be developed as high density as it can be. And especially in the heart of downtown, we've got this Village Green going in that's going to be amazing and gorgeous. We've talked about, everyone's talking about this Main Street extension and whether we do the halfway road or the full road. Well, when McBride was in here trying to do the north side, why did they not complete that project? Because of the density situation. They couldn't make it work with the numbers that ended up being the case. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say McBride probably can build at a much lower cost than Benton Homes because of their volume. So if they walked away because they couldn't make it work, and now we said we couldn't get the full road at that time because we didn't have the south side, and now we have the south side and Village Green, and now we're saying we don't like it because we don't have the north side. But maybe we can use this as leverage to go get the north side. But at the end of the day, I feel like sometimes we run around in circles and demand absolute perfection, and we have to have all the stars aligned at the exact same time, or else we just blow the whole thing up. So I'm speaking specifically to this thing we're talking about between the 55 and the 53. But I mean, I'm just saying it's a little frustrating because I just feel like we sit here for hours going around in circles month after month. And then, like I said, we've got a new council coming in here in less than 60 days, and we'll be back at the drawing board, scratched from square one. And I mean, even if this gets approved, these guys are probably going to have to go through the same process, just going through the site development plan approval. And we'll probably be, it might be 2027 or 28 before they can break ground, assuming everything works out perfectly, in my opinion. I won't be here by then, but anyway, that's all I got to say. Thanks.
All right. I have, and again, we've got a motion on the floor, so unless.
Just one comment.
Do you, let's have Councilmember Albers go, and then I'll go to you.
My quick comment is I don't think
Councilmember Kranz, do you have
Just,
anything to add to your motion?
Quick question, Councilmember Giuliani, last meeting, they were not going to pay for Main Street. This time around, they're going to pay for it. So they're negotiating is what they're doing. So, and they actually walked out of here last meeting, and now they're here. So things change. That's all I'm saying, but I appreciate your comment.
All right, seeing no other hands up, Councilmember Edens, do you have something quick on that?
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor. So.
Yes, just speaking on the motion, I know that the comments were raised. We did Brightleaf differently. Why does it look differently? That was some way out to lunch approved before I was on council. But the discussion was, it was also on the other side of Highway 100, which, although in the town center regulating map does have a different feel than this side of Highway 100, which has a higher percentage of commercial outlots. And in my mind, that's an apple. It's single family detached homes. It's supposed to look like single family detached homes. This is a proposal for not an apple. It's a proposal for a banana, which meets the town center plan in terms of allowable uses. So I don't think the question is, why doesn't the apple match the banana? It's not going to. These share a fire rated wall, and they're not supposed to be the same. The question is, do you like the banana? And just a reminder, we have other bananas of different varieties. We have apartments as well. And so the city didn't end with having a banana.
Okay, well, it looks like I think we've covered this one here. There is that motion on the floor. Does anyone need it repeated? Otherwise, Colleen, do you want
Councilmember Krantz, it's been a long night.
to? You're doing good. You're doing good. Thank you.
Latitude 38. Is that
Okay. So Director Vunich, is that good or should we?
I believe that's fine unless Mr. Young corrects me. We have a motion that says 43 and do a 53 or 55.
Yeah, I mean, does it make sense to leave in there the 53 or 55? Okay. The motion is for the 43, as Councilmember Grant said. Okay, so being that we're not sure how this will be, we'll do this as a roll call. So go ahead.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
No. No. No.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
It looks like the majority is no, so that motion failed. So at this point, we're still back at what the city has, which is the 53 based in the agreement there. Is there any other motion at this point related to the number of units? Otherwise, we will proceed. Councilmember Edens.
Yeah, I'll make the 55 because here's why. You're not locked into voting for it later. It's still going to have a public hearing. This is to prepare the legislation. There's still the minimum of 2 more readings. And some of the questions that people have brought up tonight are more specific to site development plans. And those details haven't been ironed out. So they're going to walk. This is going to kill the project. At least get your questions answered down the road. So motion for 55.
Okay. Do you have a second? Made by Councilmember Dodwell. So we have 55 in the motion. Colleen, it looks like you're writing it down. So that's fresh, that motion there. Any other discussion on that motion? Okay, let's make sure okay, so Councilmember Mabry had his hand up. So now we're talking about 55. Let's keep it focused on the motion. Microphone, please.
The importance of adding to what we previously recommended has to do with the property management plan, if that's what it's titled. I haven't seen it, but I'm hoping the city has because it's been referred to a couple of times. So, Mr. Vunich, does that property management plan extremely positively impress you in the department and staff that it is going to automatically not just answer, but quash any and all 100%, always, every complaint of anything to do with tenant behavior, tenant action, tenant restrictions of errant behavior. In every case, if not,
Hey, Mayor,
I'm
can
not
we have a
going to-
point of order?
This is,
I
I'm
think
not-
I want to state of the motion.
So, yeah, is this related to the number of units? Otherwise, Director Vunich, I mean, I think originally there was an item when the original discussion around the number of units was tied to a property manager on site.
That's where
Maybe you
this
just
was
want to
going.
answer that question there and hopefully that'll be,
Yes, the direction from city council is that if the development entity were to have an on-site manager, a 54th unit would be authorized.
54th.
Correct.
I'd go 55, but I want a near 100% requirement with the proposal, and it sounds like we could argue it later, but I'll vote no for 55 if the permanent property manager.
At this stage, all the development entity has done is provided as called out attachment A, the rules that they apply to all tenants that rent in the development. Those rules are extensive. Certainly the department has reviewed them preliminarily, but to give you 100% assurance, I don't think I can do that, sir.
All right. Anyone
Thank you.
else have any otherwise we'll take a vote on the motion that's on the floor. All right, Councilmember McCutcheon. 55.
Yeah. So mostly what we hear as council people is the question of density. And yes, higher density is allowed in town center, but our residents don't want higher density anywhere in the city. And it's our responsibility to uphold the residents' wishes. And yes, 2 or 3 houses can make a difference. I hate to go back to this, but Joe sat down with the current Villages of Brightleaf Point, worked out a plan that was made everybody happy, made the realtor happy, the developer happy, department, the residents, the council people for that area.
Because didn't we already vote on
I'm
55 units?
speaking to the question.
I thought we already voted on 55 units.
No, we have not.
Okay.
No, so what I'm saying is, everybody's going, well, what's the difference? With 2 houses can make a difference. The arrangement of the plan can make a difference. That was to the question.
Good there. So is that a question or are you good? Just a statement? All right. So I don't see any other hands up. We have a motion on the floor, Colleen. That is for 55. That was made by Councilmember Edens. Let's try with the roll call on that.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
Yes. Yes.
I have it tallied at 9-7.
Yeah, that's what I have. All right. So the motion passes then. All right. So now we'll continue forward. All right, Joe, this is item number 4, right-of-way dedication. I feel like you've addressed this before, but I will let you speak to it. It looks like there's no change as it is. So again, if there is a change, then we would seek that from the council here. Go ahead.
Yes, in this particular instance, the city is requesting an extraordinary dedication of 40 feet of land area from the development site for public right-of-way purposes. The developer has agreed to that.
Does anyone wish to, Councilmember Marshall?
I just have a question. I'd like for you to check your vote.
I would too, because there aren't 16 people here.
Chris is out tonight, so there's only 15 and we're adding up 16.
Pardon me, 8-7. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. That, all right, so back to where we were talking about the discussion. So that still stays the same, the outcome. The yes votes have it for that motion that was made. All right, so therefore, council member, do we have any council members that wish to speak related to this item here regarding the right-of-way dedication or Joe, did you want to add anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, I don't see any changes related to the right-of-way dedication here. We'll move on to number 5, compensation for land dedication. Director Vunich.
The city had originally offered to pay for that extraordinary dedication, which would have been 20 feet of the 40-foot total width. The developer has said that that is not necessary since they intend to build the road.
Anyone wish to make any changes here? We have the items right here in front of you. Okay, any, Councilmember Edens?
Can we roll the next two items in together? Because it only works to give a credit if we work out the construction of the Main Street payment at the same time because they're constructing it. Because I'm not going to vote for one if the other one fails or vice versa. In my mind, they're coupled together. Is there any reason why we can't do that?
Certainly not. With the mayor's permission, the city was going to pay the development entity and the development entity was going to pay the city. And it's not necessary now since the development entity is going to build one half of Main Street.
So I will make the motion in lieu of them being together. And I will also say just verbally, if for some reason that this fails in total tonight, I'm not going to support the main motion later because this is necessary for working that out.
So there is concurrence between the city and the development entity on these two items. I believe there's no need to make a motion unless there is a change.
Okay.
There is a change because the agreement currently provides for these two items. So
Thank
I
you.
would ask that if you agree with the proposed amendments, the motion would be appropriate to vote on.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Would you recommend, if that's the case, separate motions?
No, I think a single motion to amend the proposed ordinance to be consistent as presented in the chart by the department and the developer is fine.
So, do we, all right, so motion made by Councilmember Hopper. Can you just state that so that Colleen could write that down, or do you have it? Go ahead.
John, if you might help a little bit,
Yeah.
but the motion to accept the changes as displayed in this document for items 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Oh, sorry, 5 and 6. My apologies.
5 and 6, yeah, sorry. Just kidding.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Hopper, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. So the motion is on the floor. Does anyone have any questions related to this item, or is it clear to everyone? Otherwise, we'll proceed with a vote. Okay, seeing none, then we'll go ahead and, are you good capturing that so far? Okay, let's just do a roll call, so this way we have a clear answer.
Yes.
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 Okay, so that takes care of items, there are 5 and 6 to modify that according to the proposed. So number 7, do we have, Joe, do you have any clarification, or you want to talk about that? It seems like there's no change recommended.
No change. The cooperation agreement anticipates the credit of the traffic generation assessment fees to the development entity who assisted Main Street construction, and they are agreeable to.
Right, and maybe just, I know this has been mentioned once before, but you had mentioned this, that this is practice that was followed with Main Street Crossing or other
Yes.
proposals.
Starting with Dearborg's Town Center and ending most recently with Main Street Crossing, we've credited traffic generation assessment fees to facilitate road improvement.
All right, seeing no changes there or anyone here that wishes to make any change, we'll keep moving forward. So that would bring us to the last item, 8, the general summary. So do you have anything else that you wish to add related to this item?
I believe Mr. Lee just added that item as a summary, and I think it's reflective of the first 7.
Okay. So therefore, we have gone through all these items here. So now we do have a motion on the floor. I'll ask the city attorney then at this point, would we then take another vote based on the motion on the floor? Or does it have to be amended based on what we voted on thus far with modifications?
Motions that have previously been made are the amendments to the main motion. So the main motion as amended is now before the council.
Okay, so now the main motion as amended.
The two items of amendment are to change the number of units from 53 to 55 and to accept the changes set forth in items 5 and 6 of the chart presented to the council pertaining to the credits and developer payment for the construction of Main Street.
Any questions or any other items that anybody wishes to discuss? This would be the time. Councilmember Mabry, I know I cut you off before. You had a question that was unrelated to the units, but if you want to ask that question, probably now would be a good time because that might be something you take into consideration with your vote.
The majority has voted, and that item I'll support.
Okay.
The majority in that case.
All right. Anything else from anyone? All right. So at this point, we have that motion on the floor with the amendments that have been voted on. So we will then we'll do a roll call on that and see how that goes.
Yes.
Marshall. Jackson.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
Yes. Yes.
No.
What's the total?
10-5.
Is that what you have, Colleen? Okay. So then that motion passes then. So at this point, then I think we've covered all these items here. Joe, what is the next step regarding this?
The legislation will be prepared, and accompanying the legislation, the cooperation agreement will be revised as well.
And then we brought to the next council meeting?
If that is acceptable to the city council, yes, we'll have it prepared for the March meeting.
Okay, and that's a first reading then, right? And then
Yes, it would be
there's
the
still a second
introduction.
reading. Okay, all right, thank you for that. Then we will proceed. We have just several other for action items. Joe, just let us know. I mean, if there's anything, I know, given the time and the amount of discussion we've had, if there's anything we can hold for the next meeting, let us know. Otherwise, we'll get through this.
Item B from the Department of Planning and Parks is the bid results of the Essen Log Cabin reassembly. The department can defer that to the upcoming Planning and Parks Committee, which will be held a week from tomorrow.
All right, so you're fine with that, holding that off to the Planning and Parks meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next.
The department received a proposal from the recommended consultant for the city's first historic preservation plan. That particular project has some timelines relating to the grant, and so the department would respectfully request authorization to prepare the legislation to engage the consultant. The grant is $21,000. The base bid for the consultant work is approximately $36,000. There are some add-ons that the department would like to discuss with the Historic Preservation Commission. So again, the department would respectfully request authorization to prepare legislation.
Okay, is there anyone that wishes to make a motion as requested by the department? Made by Councilmember Albers, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Colleen, I see you writing there, so I just want to make sure you've got that motion now. Okay, we'll try with a voice vote unless there's any discussion or question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, that motion passes.
Thank
All right,
you.
next item, Rick, if you want to come up regarding the Department of Public Works, consideration of change order for temporary video detection at Manchester Taylor Surfacing and Signal Project.
Thank you, Mayor Gaetano. Council members, I'll keep this as brief as possible. This is a request for authorization to execute a change order with our contractor under our Manchester Taylor Signal and Resurfacing project for the amount of no more than $12,000. We are wanting to install temporary video detection at the two traffic signals on Manchester at Pierside and Manchester at Schnooks Wildwood Crossing to actuate the signal operation to reduce delays. The current signals induction loops were severed with the construction of the projects. We're trying to get the two signals operating more efficiently and reduce delays. So the cost would be no more than $12,000 under a change order. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone wish to make a motion regarding that? Councilmember Crayons. Are you making a motion as well, or? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, there have been some complaints.
Okay, is there a second on that motion made by Councilmember Hopper? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Councilmember Marshall.
Yeah, just under some discussion. I know we had this at Public Works. And I voted no for it, but I guess my question, Mr. Brown, would be the $12,000 there, and I get Pierside because that does push us right down. But at Schnucks, there's 3 entrances and exits out of there. Why would we need to put in a $7,000 or $6,000 sensor for 2 to 3 months when there's signs everywhere? It's all under construction, and we know it's going to be a long time. It just seems to me to put that much money when you've got so many different options to get in and out. You don't have that with Pierside. I get that part of it. And I don't know that they'll even bid it that way. I just kind of thought that was a lot of money for something that you have so many options to get in and out of.
I think the argument, sir, is that the traffic that's being delayed on Manchester Schnucks is the through traffic, and they're being caught because there's nobody on the side road. And that won't go away. I mean, yes, there are 3 access points to the supermarket, but if you are going through, eastbound or westbound, you're still apt to be caught by the signal, unfortunately. It would correct that as well, yes. It would correct the fact that the signal would be stopping for the fact there's no traffic on Pierside. Same thing at Schnucks Wildwood Crossing.
Quick follow-up question. I think I understand Councilmember Marshall's point too. It seems like that intersection sees a lot less traffic than Pierside. And we have several other intersections there that don't have any other signals, like the driveway out of Schnucks that's closest to the enclaves. And then there's another driveway that comes out on the near where the former Electro Savings Bank used to be, which is across from where the gas station is. But those all have stop signs. Is that a consideration of maybe just, not using the signal there and using, a 4-way, well, not a 4-way, but a stop for the traffic coming out of the Schnucks, and that way it would save on the cost. I just feel like there's not a whole lot of traffic there.
If you'd like to defer the expenditure at Schnucks, we could consider putting the Schnucks signal on flash if that's what you'd like to do.
So flash would be all the time?
All the time, so that essentially the Schnucks traffic, or the side road traffic, would be like a stop sign.
Okay.
The main line would be.
So the main line would keep moving, and that's it. I don't know. I mean, it's just a thought that just came out now. What are your initial thoughts? I mean, is that something that can handle that?
Well, typically the concern comes from the commercial entities in the development, and we certainly have not talked to them about that possibility and gotten their opinion. I think it could work, but a lot of times it's, if Schnucks does not like the idea, you are going to hear about it.
Okay. Councilmember Hopper.
We could leave Schnucks alone and it would operate, yes, under its current form of mode, if that's what the council prefers to do. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the traffic though is still going to end up hitting a red, every so often at the where the Schnucks is, and then we'll still hear about it. Yeah. Well, maybe you can look into seeing if the flash works, and if that's a possibility, maybe that might be a temporary solution.
So if that's the desire, then I think that's the direction the department will go. If the motion would probably be suitable just to proceed with Pershide at this time. That's what the desire is with the council.
Yes, the council, and see if they have an opinion of that. Councilmember Ottenberg.
Is there any danger in switching from a controlled stoplight intersection to the flashing lights that we're discussing? Because people are used to doing something a certain way. And now we're switching the way the lights would operate. Does that create any kind of a risk or hazard?
Well, certainly there's always that possibility whenever you get out there and modify signals. People are trained, they're used to it, the signal being in operation. So now you're going to go out and introduce a completely different operation for that signal. So I guess I couldn't rule it out. I wouldn't expect that to be a serious problem, but it's hard to say with certainty.
Thank you.
You know what? Yeah, I think maybe just for the cost, it's probably worth it just to ensure safety there. To do the temporary video on both. At least that's what I think. Yeah, we have a motion on the floor. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Oh, we have, is that one opposed? Okay, two opposed. All right. I believe, is that, check to see. We have miscellaneous. We have two receive and file items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission acted on 2 conditional use permits over the course of its last meeting. At that meeting, they authorized a delay in a permit requirement relating to PZ 15-17 Babbler Farms LLC, which is the large water feature and associated waterfall. The Planning and Zoning Commission deferred the permit until any time in the future when there is a major upgrade or change to the facility. The second item relates to the telecommunications tower at the Marinus Retreat Center. There's a restriction on the extent the antennas can extend from the tower, which is 12 inches. The new technology requires 18 inches, and the Planning and Zoning Commission granted such. As with any conditional use permit, City Council has 15 days to exercise its power of review. That power of review would need to be exercised tonight on either of these 2 items. Otherwise, that 15-day period would pass and the changes would become effective. Thank you.
All right, any action on the receive and file item?
I just have a question.
Sure.
So if we don't do anything with this waterfall, we don't ever have to talk about this waterfall again.
Well, one of the items.
In my lifetime, somebody else might.
No, I can't guarantee that either. I'm pretty good at not guaranteeing things tonight, but to accommodate the delay in the permit, the Planning and Zoning Commission requested that the annual renews stay in place, at least until such time that there is a change in the condition at the waterfall and large water feature. So next year about this time, it will be back.
Thanks for that one, Larry.
All right, motion to adjourn the work session. Councilmember Farmer and motion by Councilmember Farmer, second by Councilmember Mabry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.